So without further ado, I will turn the floor over to our brilliant, talented, she wrote this, political strategist, Amanda Finelli, for the presentation. Take it away, Amanda.
Thank you, John. I'll make sure to give you $10 for that really beautiful introduction. So I want to thank you. I was having trouble actually getting onto my own webinar. So technology's great. But it was Outlook this time. It wasn't even Zoom. We had done this whole run through right before, and lo and behold, like I go to get on it this time and it takes me 10 minutes to log into my own Zoom. So before John introduced literally every single person that was on the call, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. There's an overwhelming amount of people on this call, and it is so great to see so many of our members wanting to learn more about this really important topic. But it was also really important for us, to do this. We've committed through the PAC, and the PAC has made a concerted effort to make sure that our members have more information than they've ever had on this election. And we want to make sure that that means everything. That means how we vote. That means who we vote for, and to make sure that your questions are answered and that our members feel equipped to make the right decisions at the ballot box or at the post box, right? So what we are going to talk about today, there's so much information out there, and that was another reason it was really important to talk about this, because there is so much information, misinformation, getting it from all different directions, that we want to be sort of a clarifier on this issue. Now, I'm sure John mentioned this before. I have some questions that people have submitted beforehand. We'll go over those at the end. I'm going to go through the presentation with all of you. So I've done 1 million Zoom calls with our great PAC who really rolled with the pandemic and did their endorsement interviews over Zoom. But I am not a genius at sharing screens. So I am super excited that we are going to try a new Zoom thing for me today, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and we are going to go through this presentation. So without further ado, okay. Give me a thumbs up. Can you all see it? All see the screen? Perfect. We're off to a rolling start. Okay. And I also want to say that's going to be my new staff picture forever. Thanks to Coach Johnson for hooking me up with a great scenic mask. Okay, so what we're talking about today is, we always talk about getting out the vote, but this is a very, very strange year for us. So getting out the vote is needed in many cases. So it is incredibly in terms of expanding access for the election was the ability to online vote or to online register to vote, which is not something we've had in the past. So you can go to the State Board of Elections website. They've teamed up with DMV. There is an entire portal where you can register to vote online. What they call it is you'll submit your application to register to vote online because they'll cross-reference it with your other information. But you can do that online too. So if folks feel like they have to go somewhere to register to vote, that's simply not true. You can do it online now. So in 2018, 83% of our members that were registered to vote turned out to vote. Now, you'll remember 2018 was a blue moon election. We didn't have any statewide races. We had one technically, which was Supreme Court, but we didn't have a governor's race. All of our council of state races are every 4 years. Traditionally, crazy low turnout in a blue moon year. We hadn't had one since 2006. So incredible. So the statewide voting average was at 53%. Voter turnout was at 53%. SEANC came in 30 points higher than the statewide voting record. We ran a tremendous get out the vote program. And I think, it's a real testament again to how important our members take their civic responsibility to vote. But here we are. We are in 2020 with fire nados, dueling hurricanes, a pandemic. What were they? Death beetles or death? Oh, I'm gonna get it wrong. I can't remember. Some sort of death insect.
Murder hornets.
Murder hornets. Thank you. There's John with important information. So 2020 has certainly pushed us all to our limits and has forced us to learn how to adapt to all sorts of different things. But I fully believe in the motivation of our members that they will make heaven and earth move so that they get their vote heard, counted, and in, most important. So I have no doubt that y'all are gonna vote, but the most important thing is we might have to change what that getting out the vote looks like. So let's get started with what the absentee ballot request process looks like. So there are 22 states that have expanded their voter registration program, or not, excuse me, their mail ballot program, and they are either sending automatic registration request forms. I'm going to keep saying voter registration. They either are sending automatic absentee ballot request forms, or they're sending automatic ballots. We are not one of those states. So you have to take the initiative to request an absentee ballot. You won't get one automatically sent to you. So I've seen a lot of the questions addressing what you're getting in the mail. I'll take that on a little bit, phase forward towards the end, but just know that you have to request your ballot. So who can request one? So in some states, you're required to have a special circumstance or reason, why you can't do it, why you can't make it to the polls. Not in North Carolina. So anyone is free to request an absentee ballot. And all registered North Carolina voters may request a ballot for the 2020 general election. So anyone that tries to say that, only certain groups of people can request a ballot, that's also not true. Everyone can request a ballot that is registered to vote in North Carolina. So you, the voter, can request a ballot. And your relative may request a ballot for you, which we're going to talk about that here in a minute. A legal guardian, or a member of a multi-partisan assistance team. So if you don't have in your relative near you, or you obviously don't have a legal guardian, there are people that are qualified to help and assist you with the ballot, and they are called the MAT team. So your Board of Elections would have those folks available to you. They become particularly significant for folks who are maybe in assisted living facilities, or hospitals. So there is a provision on witnesses that you can't work in the hospital. You can't have an employee of where you're a resident, right? So if you're in an assisted living space, a worker there cannot be your witness. So MAT members become really significant. So it's important to know what your options are, especially if you have family or friends that are in assisted living facilities. Either make a plan to be a witness for them or to find a witness, or to contact the Board of Elections and see if a member of the MAT team is available to help. Okay, so these are the people who qualify as a near relative, and this is a pretty strict list. So anybody who doesn't fit one of these categories does not count as a near relative. Near relatives become very significant because they are the people who can request your ballot for you, and they can also hand your ballot in for you. Know that if you are requesting a ballot for a near relative, you will need the last four of their social security number or their driver's license ID number. The other thing I want you to know is to not be shocked or surprised if you are asked to provide your contact information and your signature on the request. So what I'm seeing over and over again is people are receiving things in the mail, sometimes from different groups, that seem very party motivated, and they want you to do this or do that. And I'm getting a lot of, is this real? Is this legitimate? When you request a ballot, you will have to provide that information. So know what it is that you will have to provide. So get the last four of their social or their driver's license ID number. For folks here that have college-age children who are now not living on college campuses, but will most likely be returning home to live with you, do know that you can request a ballot, so to make sure that your child votes, which is an incredibly important thing. But also the Board of Elections just released a statement, I believe it was yesterday, about what plans will be made, what accommodations are made for students, right? So what the Board of Elections is advising college-age students is to request your ballot to an address you will be. So to make sure that you're sending it to, if you're going to your parents' house, send it to your parents' house. Make sure it's going to an address you'll be at. Now, if you've already requested a ballot to your campus domicile, then that's okay, because what they're saying is you can contact them and get a new ballot that will be sent to your house. Now, no, that doesn't mean they can vote twice, which we will also address in this webinar. I'm trying to make sure I get all of your burning questions. So this is what you will see when you go to the Board of Elections site to request your absentee ballot form. So you'll have this really big page of instructions. I advise you to read through that. The more caution you can exert on the front end of this process, the less headache you will have on the back end. So it also tells you all the information you'll need, right? Your date of birth, and then some form of identification, which is like your driver's license number or the last four of your social. Now that's just for identity matching. Do know that voter ID is not required to vote by mail. So you are not required to send a copy of your ID. The way they are verifying identification is the way they've always done it, which is by your social security number or your driver's license number. Okay, and so, the other things to be said for folks, there's plenty of accommodations made for anyone with disabilities, or need special assistance. Contact the Board of Elections. The other thing to be said is all of this information is also available in Spanish. So you can also request all this information in Spanish as well.
Hey, Amanda, can you zoom in a little bit on your screen?
I don't know. You're really pushing me now.
Control plus.
Okay.
Oh, nope. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried that that's not going to happen for us, Amanda.
No worries.
Maybe when you make this video look way cooler and impressive, you can make that look bigger. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not that cool. But yeah, and effectively everything that's on this this sheet, that's the instruction sheet that you will get when you print off your packet for absentee ballots, we're going to go through all of that as well. So this is all the information too. Now, one of the other expansions that was provided in the elections bill was the ability to email your request or fax your request. You need to send it to your county board of elections. So if you live in Pender County, it needs to go to Pender County Board of Elections. If you live in Catawba County Board of Elections, et cetera, et cetera. And it is where your residence is. So I know sometimes, we have folks who work in, Granville County, but they live in Wake County. And that always can be a little bit confusing, especially when people are trying to send mail. They always mess that up about who your candidates are traditionally. So it is your permanent residence address. And the other thing I'm going to show you here at the end, because I think it's important for you all to know, is how to check your registration status, where your polling location is, et cetera, okay? How to request your ballot. The State Board of Elections site. I'm also going to show you what our wonderful comms team did to make it a little bit easier. SEANC.org/absentee. You'll see it on the screen, but when you click that link, it will take you right to the absentee ballot request. The other thing that is going to be really interesting is, I believe it's Thursday, the Board of Elections is planning to make their online request portal live. So you will be able to request your absentee ballot now online, which will be incredibly easy. And I can't wait to see.
Can you come here a minute, please?
I can't wait to see how many absentee ballot requests come in as soon as the online capability is mobilized. Okay. All right, so this is how to request your ballot. So you can go to your county board of election site. You can do that as well. And then the online absentee ballot, it's actually going to be up a little bit earlier. They had been saying September 1st, but it looks like we're going to have it sooner, which is very, very exciting. Where to request an absentee ballot? The North Carolina Board of Elections, right here. So it's a really long website, which is why our tremendous comms team did this for y'all. Now you can also go to the Board of Elections, ncsbe.gov, hover over vote. It's the first option under vote. I mean, it's, the Board of Elections actually has a really user-friendly site, and it's, in the PDF column right to the right if you're going to print it off and mail it in. When to request a ballot? I would say absolutely right now. So you can request your mail-in ballot from now until October 27th, 2020 through 5 p.m. So these times are sort of hard and fast. Well, they're not sort of, they are. They're hard. They're hard deadlines. So make sure that your request is absolutely in by 5 p.m. on October 27th, 2020. If you are mailing your ballot request form in, I would advise you to probably email, fax, or take it to the Board of Elections if you are pushing it to that point. But I also know that SEANC members are incredible early voters as well. And so I have no doubt in my mind that you will have all already gotten your ballots by October 27th. So, right, request must be received by 5 p.m. on the 27th. If you're returning a request by mail, plan ahead. Amanda is telling you to make sure you have your ballot in hand by October 27th. So where do you return your ballot request in? Your county board of elections. So I actually just had a friend yesterday or the day before go to, or what is today? Today's Tuesday, so it was yesterday. Go to the Wake County Board of Elections. She and her husband were able to fill out their requests right there and then turn them in right there. And it was a really seamless, easy process. They didn't have to wait in line, and they made sure that it was right there and it was turned in. Again, you can fax it, you can email it, you can snail mail it, or you can go in person, like I just mentioned, to your county board of elections. But make sure it is your county. When will you receive your ballot? So ballots are going to start going out on September 4th. So 60 days before an election is when mail ballots begin going out. Where to return your ballot? So when you get your ballot, you will get the actual ballot, you will get your instructions, you will get a container return envelope. Your envelope is really important. Don't lose your envelope. Your envelope also has the certifications for your witnesses on it. So it is really important that you don't, think, oh, I'll get a different envelope. For folks that haven't mail balloted before, your envelope is a very important piece of your ballot process. If you are voting with your family, if you live in a household with multiple people who are registered and eligible to vote, and you want to put them all in the same envelope, you can't do that. They all need to be in your own envelope. So if you are going to send them by mail back to the Board of Elections, so I live in Wake County, I would send mine to the Wake County Board of Elections, and it has to reach them, or it has to be received no later than November 6th. But I have to have it postmarked no later than 5 p.m. on election day, which is November 3rd. I would recommend getting your mail postmarked anyway. I think it's always an important thing, but absolutely, if you are trying to mail your ballot in on election day, make sure you get it postmarked. The other alternative you have on election day is you can take it to your Board of Elections. So for folks who really want to vote on election day but don't want to go to the polls to vote, now you cannot take it to your polling place, but you can take it to the Board of Elections. You can drop your ballot off during early voting. So at any early voting site in your county, you can take your ballot to be received there. However, you will still have to stand in line. So if you choose to drop your ballot off, and that's really important. You want to make sure it's in somebody's hands and it's going to be counted along with everyone else's votes right there in that space. That is completely fine. You can do that through October 31st, which is the last day of early voting. However, you don't get to skip the line. No skipsies, which is, I know, the most disappointing part of that is you think, I already got my work done, but no, you have to stay in line. So just be mindful of that if that is a precaution that you are taking and that you really don't want to be standing in the long lines at the polls, that might not be a good option for you. So plan ahead. How many witnesses do I need? So for the 2020 election, so traditional mail ballots are 2. However, for 2020, you are only required to have 1 witness. So your witness is more than welcome and actually highly, highly encouraged to maintain social distancing at all times, because your witness isn't supposed to hover over your shoulder while you're filling out your ballot. They're only supposed to verify that I, Amanda, am indeed the person who is filling out this ballot and putting it in my container envelope that was included in my ballot request, and that I am who I say I am. So that's not a social distancing concern. You can absolutely maintain social distancing. In fact, I was even seeing where people were recommending You can stand on the other side of a window, or if you have a porch, people are being very creative, and I highly applaud that. Okay, but what if you decide you want to vote in person? Because all of this, is, on the one hand, we want to be proactive. We want to make sure our votes count. But on the other hand, I know that there are some people who absolutely want to vote in person. And we don't know what the world is going to look like in a couple months. And what if it becomes safe or safer to vote in person? And I've already requested a mail ballot. That is okay. However, once you request an absentee ballot and you fill it out and you send it back in, your absentee ballot is already in, and you can't vote in person. So when it has been received by the Board of Elections, you're already in the system, your voter registration number is already in. When you go to vote in person, then if I go and they say, well, you've already voted, they'll be able to check if I voted. My number will pop up and it will say this person has already voted. On the flip side of that, if you choose to go vote in person, then it completely null and voids your absentee ballot, which I'll get into more of the safety aspects of that towards the end here, but just know that you can vote in person. But I tend to always, this is me personally, I tend to always err on the side of caution for election day. And the one reason I always do that, I very rarely vote on election day, because election day is always really crazy and hectic and all over the place for me. So I make a voting plan, usually very early in early voting, so that I make sure that my vote's in and it's counted. And whatever happens for the rest of that early voting period and on election day, I'm okay because my vote's in. I would tend to suggest that even if you're not sure how you're going to vote, whether you're going to vote in person or by mail, I would recommend that you request a mail ballot anyway. Because like I just said, we really don't know what's going to happen in 2 months, what that's going to look like. So for the sake of making sure that all of SEANC's votes count, I want to make sure that you are equipped, and I want to recommend that you all get absentee mail ballots. Whether you vote with them or not, that's up to you, but at least you have a plan. Oh, I guess we're going here now. Okay, so does this mean people can vote twice? No, they can't. Because if I fill out my absentee ballot and I go vote in person, a poll worker is going to flag me in the system right away that I have already submitted my absentee ballot. The flip side to that is if I go vote in person and then my absentee ballot is still in the mail, when the absentee ballot gets accepted by the Board of Elections, they won't accept it because it will already be flagged for them that I already voted. And more importantly than that, it is a serious crime to attempt any kind of voting fraud. And North Carolina takes that incredibly seriously. So is absentee voting safe? Because I know that this is what so many of you are probably on this call for. This is what you are so concerned about and wondering if it's the right choice for you. Yes, it's safe. And furthermore, North Carolina is actually one of the few states that actually has a dedicated investigations division who is completely responsible for looking into fraud, other irregularities, and then they refer those irregularities in those cases to prosecutors with warranted evidence when it's warranted by evidence. So, I know that y'all probably have a very good memory of 2018 when there was a significant, what was called ballot harvesting in a congressional district out west or in Charlotte, rather, not out west. But I just want to maybe put your mind at ease a little bit about that. So this is national numbers, okay? 250 million ballots over the past 20 years have been cast by mail. Only 143 of those have ever generated criminal convictions for a voter. That is 0.00006% of the number of people who have voted by mail. That equates to one case every 6 or 7 years. So the other thing to know about the physical ballot itself, ballots are unique for each jurisdiction. So there are hundreds of proofs, dozens of proofs in different jurisdictions that are used, and they are only recognized by the scanners in those districts. Even past ballots, so a Wake County ballot from 2018 would not be recognized by a Wake County scanner right now. And we all have individual registration numbers. So you know when you go to vote, you have your sticker goes to your ballot. So there are a ton of ways. I mean, it would be incredibly impossible to to completely fraudulently create a ballot, because there are so many safeguards in the ballot itself. But then furthermore, to make sure that the signature matched the signature that was on file with the Board of Elections, because that's what's checked against when you're not voting, in person. So I want to speak to that a little bit, because I know that that is a tremendous concern and worry. And I think, absolutely. Like all of you, I want my ballot taken seriously, and I want to know that the method I am voting in is safe, that precautions have been taken, and that we are doing everything we can to hold sacred our voting process, without question. But I want you to know that people have been using mail voting for years and years and years, forever, and that the actual statistical, the statistical proof just isn't there that mail ballots are unsafe. So the other things, I made some quick notes today of other things I wanted to, address. Oh, well, this is incredibly important. So in 2016, I talked briefly about 2018, which was sort of, a very specific instance, which frankly wasn't perpetrated by the voters. So I think it is also very important to say that that was not something that was perpetrated by voters themselves. In 2016, out of 4.8 million voters, only 2 instances of voter fraud or impersonation were found to be true. 2 out of 4.8 million. So again, statistically, that just doesn't hold up. We've talked about that you can register to vote online. You can request your ballots by email and fax. Just want to make sure all of that is covered. And the other thing that the legislature did in that bipartisan elections bill was it allocated millions more in additional spending for PPE at the in-person sites. So the personal protective equipment to ensure the safety of workers and the folks at the polls that are going to vote. And additionally, millions for cybersecurity, but also the additional administrative needs that it will take to process all these mail ballots as well, because all of those are going to have to get scanned in. So that is the other thing I wanted to mention to you. So I think, the other thing too is that 4 states, they only have mail ballots, and actually have a very efficient voting system. So Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, all those states have only done mail. And like I mentioned before, many states have expanded their access to mail ballots through either automatic ballot requests being sent or actually automatic ballots being sent. Those are fewer in number. So let's talk a little bit about the Postal Service. So we've been seeing a lot about whether or not the United States Postal Service is up to the task of handling all of our ballots. and there has been a lot that has been said in the press about it, and there are conflicting opinions all over the place. What I would say about that, I'm going to always tell our folks to err on the side of caution. Like I've just told you, request your ballot early, request it right now. When you get off this webinar, I want you to go request your ballot. When you get your ballot, get it in. I think that is the safest way always. Now, you can track your ballot by contacting your Board of Elections to ensure that they've received it. So you can track your ballot. But to alleviate some of the concern and worry about the Postal Service, I find this piece of information incredibly interesting and impactful, and hopefully you will too. So last year, in the week before Christmas, the United States Postal Service estimated that they handled 2.5 billion pieces of first-class mail, which is how we send our ballots, in the week before Christmas. 2.5 billion. Now in 2016, there were about 130 million votes for president, about 250 million voters. So I believe that the Postal Service can certainly handle the volume, as they've said. But for our purposes and for our campaign to make sure that you are mobilized and prepared and ready and all those things to vote, it does not hurt to send your ballots in early. But I don't want anything that you're hearing in that regard to make you feel like your vote isn't going to be heard or your vote's not going to matter. So, like I mentioned to you before, ballots that are postmarked on November 3rd by 5 o'clock on election day will count if they are received before November 6th and they've been postmarked. So you need to just get your ballot in. Let me see if I have anything else. And this is actually a good segue into talking about third-party organizations. So absentee by mail data is confidential until election day or until your ballot's been returned. So once your ballot has been turned in already, it ticks a box off and you come off as an eligible voter at that point because you've already voted. In the same way that if you vote in absentee, in early voting during one-stop voting, the same thing occurs. So no one's going to know if you request a mail ballot. It's confidential. Now, of course, there are a lot of groups, parties, everyone is trying to make sure that the votes are coming out for their candidates. So they want to send you requests, they want to send you mailers, they want to send all sorts of things. My advice to you always is, to go with reliable sources, which, in my mind's eye is always going to be the State Board of Elections on this matter. I would encourage all of you to get your ballot request form from the State Board of Elections, and you will receive your ballot from the Board of Elections. So either your county board or the state to get your ballot. The thing about third party, there's actually some cases being heard now around what a third party is actually able to do in this regard. However, right now, it is not permissible for a third party to pre-fill out any information for you. So a third party cannot send that to you. The only people that can pre-fill out an absentee request form or help you with your ballot are those people that we talked about at the beginning: a near relative, a legal guardian, or someone from the MAT team. That's it. So a third party, like North Carolinians for Good Government, whoever it may be, I don't think that's a real one. I tried to make one up. sends you this and it's got all your information pre-filled out. All you have to do is send it in the mail. Well, they can't do that. So go to the Board of Elections, print out your form, or utilize the online portal when that becomes live in 2 days, and do it that way. And that way you make sure that all of your information is above board. And also, use me as a resource. My email is at the end of this presentation. If you are confused or you're receiving things, frankly, I want to know about it. So please feel free to always reach out to me and say, hey, Amanda, I'm not really sure. I got this in the mail, or I'm getting calls about this thing. Is this real? Is this legitimate? And I will do my very, very best to help you figure it out. So now we are at our questions point, and I think, if I remember well, I think we talked about all of the questions we got online. I do want to show you quickly how
I know
to.
there's a few in the chat too, if you need more.
Okay, perfect. Let me just show you quickly how to look up your voter information. Oh, so that's actually me.
Yeah.
No shame in my game. Because it's actually public, anyone can look at it. So
We're not seeing what you're showing.
Yeah, we're just seeing the presentation.
well, perfect then. Then y'all didn't see my stuff, but I'm gonna do mine anyway for y'all. Okay, so let me do maybe a stop share here. All right, let's do a share screen of this one. Okay,
Oh, now it's up.
you see it? Okay, so there's this great tool at the State Board of Elections, which is the voter lookup tool. And so you'll see this information. I advise everyone to check, in fact, I'm really annoying and did this for tons of the people I know, to make sure that, especially my friends that have moved recently and forgot to update their information, that they had put in a request and that they had their voter registration changed. So put in your information, search it. You'll have to do this. I always get really nervous. I'm not going to be able to detect a fire hydrant every time. It will show you there are very few people in the world with my name, all like that, especially in North Carolina. And so here's what you can see. So it'll have your name, your address, where you're registered at. That's the address that you're registered to vote at. Sample ballots, which you'll see your ballot here. So I heard something interesting earlier, which is that people have been getting mail saying, request your Republican ballot, request your Democrat ballot. For the general election, you don't have a Republican or a Democrat ballot. What you have is that's only in a primary. So you just have a general election ballot. It'll show your voter history. You can do all of that good stuff, but it'll have your voter registration number. This is what I'm talking about, right? Everyone has a voter registration number that is unique to them, that prints on your ballot. So that is significant. It'll show which primaries you vote in, all of that kind of good stuff. It'll also show you over here where your polling place is. So make a plan, especially if it's a new polling place, figure out where it's at a little bit ahead of time. Now, just another quick reminder, you cannot drop your mail ballot off at your polling location. You can drop it off at the Board of Elections on election day, and you can drop it off in person at one of the early voting sites. So I can't roll up on November 3rd at Heritage Middle School and say, here's my mail ballot. Because they're going to say, Shug, you didn't read any of the documents and didn't pay attention to your own webinar that you did. So just be cautious about all of that. Okay, now I believe that's it. It'll show you what you're registered as. So you can check all that information. I advise you to just check and make sure. You know, there was someone in 2018 that had no idea they were inactive because they had moved. They thought they had changed their registration. They didn't change their registration. And then, you know, lo and behold, what happened is the Board of Elections sent something to them to verify their address. However, they weren't there to send it back in, so it turned them into an inactive voter. So check
Hey,
your
Amanda.
Yes.
Sorry, this is.
God bless our communications. I'm not going to lie to you. At first, I was like, I could just talk, right? And Amanda Wise said, oh, honey, no. Oh, no. We need visual aids. So God bless Amanda Wise for all of her work. And John, you guys are amazing. Okay, so if a person gets confused, votes absentee, then votes in person, is the State Board of Elections going to consider them to have attempted to commit voter fraud? So my suggestion is always going to be don't do that. But also, if you believe that you have voted in error or there has been an issue that has arisen and you've made a mistake, it is always better to contact the Board of Elections immediately in that instance. So, you know, one of the things actually, you know, and this is a little bit wonky, but one of the things, so if you vote in person and you make an error, you can get that error, you know, you can go up to somebody at the polling place and say, hey, I made an error on my ballot. Can you help me? They'll give you a new ballot, all of that kind of good stuff. But you weren't able to do that for mail. So a recent ruling came down, and this is very, very recent, that says that those same protections can be applied to folks who mail in their ballots. So mail ballot votes can also have that fix ability. What is important in that instance is that you put a phone number on there that you write as legibly as possible, because if they need to get in touch with you, that's really significant. You know, also if you know, this is something that's, you know, a legitimate concern of someone getting confused about whether or not they have voted, you know, as a witness, I would maybe ask that question on the mail ballot just to make sure. But, you know, when in doubt, always contact the Board of Elections and notify them immediately. Okay. Why is there a push for mail-in voting versus voting in person at your precinct when there's much uncertainty in the postal system getting ballots? Sorry, my pictures cover part of it. Okay, ballots turned in on time. I guess I could move these perhaps. In on time to the election center to be counted. So basically, why vote by mail? Well, I mean, I think, you know, the simple answer to that is the pandemic, right? I mean, you know, I don't know about, you know, your county where you live, you know, but I certainly know that it's an ongoing concern in a lot of counties in our state. I know that there are a lot of people that don't feel comfortable standing in line, you know, even socially distanced and with masks. You know, people wanted alternatives to that, and what is, you know, the safest way to vote, particularly for folks who might be vulnerable if they happen to get sick. You know, so what can we do to protect those folks? and what makes the most sense for you and your family, and what also protects the folks who are working at the polling sites too. I mean, I think that's also a critical thing, to acknowledge, because so many of those people, I was talking to one today, volunteer to do that work. And it is incredibly commendable, but it's also important that they are safe in that process as well. So, I mean, it's completely up to you. I think, the simple answer is the pandemic and the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic, because we don't know what that's going to look like. But the one thing we do know we can do is we can request absentee ballots. We can fill out an absentee ballot and get it back in and guarantee that our votes are going to count. Okay, if my address on my license is not the same as where I live, do I need to register in the location I live or just go back to the location I voted during the last election? So my advice to you is going to be to use that handy dandy voter tool I just showed you, see what address is on file for you. Now, my guess based on this is that you are registered to vote at the address on your license, because most people get registered to vote through the DMV. So if you have not changed your voter registration since you moved, you will still be voting at your last polling place, wherever that was. However, I would highly recommend, especially now that you can register to vote online, you can register to vote from now until October 9th. That's when voter registration, it closes for the general election. And you can also do, you can also change your registration during one-stop early voting. So the early voting locations, again, for all the reasons we just discussed, I would advise you to either print off and mail in a ballot or a registration request form. Now I'm going to say ballot request forms for all voter registration, a voter registration request form, and or do the online portal to register. So what steps are being taken to prevent fraudulent ballots? I mean, I think that we've talked about this, it's the cybersecurity measures that are put in place to protect our elections, which has been, something since 2016, our legislature has taken seriously. We have taken seriously as a state. Our Board of Elections has taken seriously all of those good things. And additional money has been put, I mean, just as recently as this last session, to doing that. And the other thing that I think is very significant is what I mentioned before, that we actually have an investigations division, and honest to God, fraudulent voting doesn't hardly ever happen, or it hardly ever happens, right? So the idea that people are using mail now for fraudulent voting is actually, I mean, statistically, it does not hold up. Will we get a confirmation from the Board of Elections when we submit our ballot? If your ballot is all good and there is nothing wrong with it and it's accepted by the Board of Elections, you're not going to hear anything. You will hear something if there is an issue with your ballot, because you get that opportunity for a fix, like I mentioned before. So that's why I make sure your information's right, your phone and all that kind of good stuff. But you are able to call your Board of Elections and double check with them to follow up on your ballot and make sure they've received it. Okay.
And I see that Henry Bellata mentioned in the chat that his wife put her name down wrong on the absentee ballot, and they sent her a letter within 3 days to correct her name.
Yes. And we went down there and she filled out the paperwork, and they, the whole thing took less than 5 minutes to fix the problem.
Perfect. That's great. And I think, I think the more on top of it you can be, early on, we are officially almost 1 week away from the ballots going out. So you know, we are coming right into the short rows up to the election. So making sure that, you know, you're doing everything that's right ahead of time is perfect. So good job, Henry. All right. Are there any other questions?
We have one more question. Can family members witness each other's ballots?
Yes. Yeah, unless your family member is a candidate. So then you cannot. But I know most of our members, I don't think we have any family member candidates. And if we do, let me know. All right. Well, without any questions, again, if you have any more, please, you know, email me anytime, contact me anytime. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And if I don't know right off the top of my head, I am more than happy to
Hey,
find.
Amanda,
Uh-huh.
this is Treasurer Falwell. John and I have concluded that until you get up to our level of yoga, you can't actually quit.
I just want to say how
We've been
pleased I
practicing.
am that we are talking about such important issues right now.
Well, it's important to pay attention to your mat and breathe, which is what we need to do for the next 70 days.
That is absolutely true. Yes. So for those on the call don't know, I became a certified yoga teacher. So this is a little fun joke about, but it is, you know, that's politics and yoga are beautiful. You know, they go very, very well. Actually necessary. They're necessary to go together.
Hey, Amanda, one more question from Chuck Stone. The question is, if a person wants to be a volunteer for MT or poll observer, how is this done?
Contact your Board of Elections.
And the link, I just put it in the chat room to volunteer.
And I think I saw a news story that every county is needing volunteers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a comment made earlier in the chat. Someone was asking if this is a project that SEANC could get involved with, that try to help the Board of Elections get their precinct workers. I don't know if that's an option, but it might be a good public service for SEANC.
Mhm.
Well, it'd be not. Well, it'd be nice if the state would give everyone the day off too. Not sure that's going to happen, but
Election day is a national holiday.
Right, and for retired persons, I know, for example, I'm volunteering, not that it, you know, it really matters, but they are compensating people for their time for volunteering. I think in Wake County for an assistant is around like $217 for that day. And then you help set up the Monday before election. So you just
Wow.
have to do like a training or something like that. So just a little bit of money for your time. So just something to consider.
Alamance County is a lot cheaper than that.
Yeah.
we don't get paid $200+ dollars. It's a
No,
lot,
and
about half.
in Burr County, it's $185.
Okay, great.
Y'all just
I
don't
think last
have
time-
taxes.
last time I had jury duty, I think I got $12. So
For the full day.
And there's John.
well, is that all you have, Finelli?
It is. I want to thank you all so much for spending the last hour with me to talk about absentee mail-in ballots. Again, if you have any questions at all, or if there's something you wish I would have talked about that I didn't, just message me. You know, myself and all the SEANC staff, we're always here to help you, and especially navigate this crazy session. Watch out for impact. Let me do an impact plug real quick. We'll have a lot of really exciting news coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to know how to get involved on that front, please contact Impact Chair at scenic.org or talk to our Impact Chair, Mr. Mark Dearman. But
We were pretty stingy with the endorsements this year. We really held them to a high bar, so we'll be interesting to interested to see what you think about them when they come out in 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, thank you all so much. I am so grateful and so excited to see so many of you. And it will be online once, you know, Amanda Wise like photoshops me and makes me look exceptional like that. You know, I'll need her to like make me look like, I don't know, Julia Roberts, and then it can go out.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the slideshow and the video will be on at some point. So, okay, anyone else want to speak, or are we good for the night?
I want to know where I can get a cool microphone like you, John.
You have to be a podcaster.
Thank you to Amanda, John, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
Finelli and Wise for all of your work. It's been amazing, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arden.
Thank you.
All
right,
right, everybody, be safe.
Have a good
Bye.
night. Stay safe.
Thank you.